So we're heading into the Thanksgiving weekend, and so I think it's appropriate that I start with a big thank you. I want to thank the organizing committee who worked really hard on pulling this event together, especially virtually like this now. It has been an incredible partnership between my office and all of those frontline agencies, and it's just been fantastic. I do want to highlight a few of them, and please forgive me if I maybe missed some. I love you all, but just a few of them here. The Canadian Mental Health Association, Waterloo, Wellington, Family Counseling and Support Services, the Homewood, of course, the Suicide Awareness Council, and Spark of Brilliance. I also want to thank our two amazing guest speakers, Sara Sayyed and Kween, who will speak about how discrimination and racism affect mental health. So as I said earlier, every year we have a different theme for the Mayor's Mental Health Day. And I just find this one, obviously, I hope you all agree, it's very appropriate. It's not an easy topic, but one of the things this event is known for is that we are known to tackle some tough issues, some difficult topics. And our goal every single year is to just shine a light on some of the issues and stories that are out there so that collectively all of us here in our entire community can face those challenges together, because we're so much better when we do it together. 2020 is certainly a year that will go down in history. It's the year that COVID-19 has changed all of our lives. It's also the year when current events sparked a new awareness, I would call it, and a lot of soul searching about racism and discrimination. And I believe that soul searching has spread across the entire world, including to our own community and including to this mayor as well. So I think it's very timely and very important that our theme this year is the relationship between racism and mental health. We are very fortunate to have community leaders today with us to explore that topic. I've known them both for years, and I'm very happy. I'm extremely happy to have them join us. If you don't know them, you're just going to adore them by the end of it for sure. Our first speaker is Sara Sayyed, who is the Director of the Community Services for the Muslim Society of Guelph. And Sara is a leading voice in the local Muslim community, and she has also been a part of a number of city initiatives, and one of the biggest ones that stands out to me is her input and leadership through our community plan for the city of Guelph. Just fantastic. And then our second one will be Kween, and Kween is the executive director of the Guelph Black Heritage Society, which is a local organization, does phenomenal work in our city. And she's also the owner of the Heels Academy and the Kween Company. So Google those and check those out. So thank you so much. They've popped up on the screen here. Thank you, Sara. I'm saying hi. Thank you to Kween. I'm saying hi. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today.
Hello, everyone. And today we have Dr. Williams, Dr. Heyer, and Dr. Brown. This briefing is on record for 1 hour. Dr. Williams and Dr. Brown will give some remarks, and then we'll go over to the phone lines. One question, one follow-up.
Okay, so welcome to technology. Linda Busentil, could you please make sure that you mute, please? You've been not muted for the last 5 minutes or so. And maybe my team that's running the tech behind the scenes could make sure that Linda is muted. And maybe she's writing me a nice email right now. I'm not sure what she's doing there on the keyboard, but if Pete or Betsy could make sure that Linda is muted, that would be wonderful. Before we go to you, Sara.
Starting to parallel the worst case
Well, thanks, Cam, for the introduction.
Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just wait till we have.
Yeah, just wait. We'll just make sure here that Linda is muted. I'm going to just text my staff here. And when I tried to type in the word Linda, my text came up kids muted. So now they Linda. All right, hold on. I think it's
Good.
been done.
All right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
introduction. Hello, everyone.
Over to you. I'm gonna mute. Everyone's gonna be happy that I'm muting. So I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna turn off my screen, and it's over to you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Cam. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm just looking at the list of participants and the number keeps growing. So I'm excited that so many people have joined us this afternoon. And I hope I can shed some light on this topic and help answer some questions and we can move forward together as a community and in the best interest of everyone's mental health. So as I start my talk, I want to really just let you know that the lens that I am here with today is as a first-generation Canadian of South Asian ethnicity. I'm a daughter of immigrants. I identify as Muslim and I come from a middle-class background. And while there are many, many similarities across the experiences of the BIPOC community, I cannot even begin to address or speak to the experiences of Black, Indigenous, or LGBTQ people because again, my lens is different. So everyone's experience, everyone's journey becomes very, very different based on their intersectionalities. And so I think it's really important to highlight that and to understand that right from the get-go that we tend to refer as a group of people, BIPOC community or a racialized community, but within that racialized or BIPOC community, it's really important to know that each and every individual's journey is very different and they have gotten to where they are because of different lived experiences and different occurrences in their life. So often when we talk about mental health or we get together in a session like this, we're talking specifically about barriers to access. And we've already gotten to the point of where a person is trying to access, services. And I want to take a step back and just kind of maybe move a little bit earlier in that process, because I think by that point, we're almost getting to a point where it's really, it's not preventative anymore. It's reactive. And so I want to talk about, the different stressors that affect racialized communities, BIPOC communities. And again, how we cope is different because of where we land on a spectrum, whether you're depending on your economic background, your educational background, and what your journey has brought you to at that point. And so I want to talk about what we really, I guess, politely term microaggressions, which would be an indirect or subtle unintentional discrimination that is a member of a marginalized group experiences. And I feel like it's just almost a polite little term to use, but when you start stacking up what we call microaggressions, they really become a huge issue. And I felt it was important to just backtrack a bit and start talking about those before we even get to the point of accessing services. So one of the studies that I found defines microaggressions again as indirect, subtle, and unintentional discriminations. And another study was that I was reading, they kind of came to this conclusion. Microaggressions tend to leave targets feeling angry, confused, and often wondering if race was involved in the interaction and whether or not to confront the perpetrator. Studies have found that the process of encountering racial microaggressions can be psychologically and physically draining, often leading to higher levels of stress and poor mental health. And I think that sums up what I really want to the point I want to make, that these little things day in and day out from an early age cause a huge mental fatigue. And it's really difficult to cope with that on an ongoing basis. And just to give you an idea, for many families, it starts right from the birth of a baby. We've had this discussion in our household. What do we name a child? Do we name them something that's cross-cultural, something that's going to, reflect their culture? Is it going to set them up for hardship? For us, it was a question of, is this name going to give, us trouble at the border when we're trying to cross into the US or fly international? You know, is it going to be pronounceable on a resume? What is, when you, before that, kid is even born, you're going through all of this, how do I set them up for the best success? And does that mean I have to leave, maybe family traditions or naming traditions behind to set them up? And then just even from an early age, getting into school, what's a normal lunch, or what's a normal hairstyle, what's normal clothing? And just, constant questions that could come that seem harmless and innocent, but after a while they start to wear on a person. They start to make them question themselves. What is this Eurocentric standard of normal, and how do I best fit to that to, to just get through life? And kids from when they're 5-6 years old start becoming hyper aware of the way they act and the way they are being, or the way they're talking, just to make sure that they're sliding through life as best as they can. And as you get older, it's little things like being asked for a citizenship card as opposed to a birth certificate, for identity, for a kid who's born and raised here, and then constantly being say, oh, do you have a citizenship card for your ID? And say, thinking, why would I need a citizenship card? I was born and raised here. Or comments like, oh, your English is really good, or your parents speak English. Just things like that, for young kids, for teenagers, it's supposed to be, as you travel through that time period, a discovery of yourself and your talents. And for many racialized groups, for South Asians, it's more about just becoming comfortable in your skin, and that mental stress of who am I and where do I fit and where do I belong becomes that much more difficult. So all of these things start to pile up and add to that mental stress. And then if you add in other, factors and socioeconomic factors, and things like that, it really is a determinant of how you're going to cope with things as you progress through life. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that from the get-go, people who are in positions of influence and power, like our educators, our doctors, our therapists, our social service workers, really need to put the effort into making, changing what is considered normal, shifting that view from Eurocentric to global, to, really help kids in their mental health. Because if you start with their mental health and emotional health, then it sets them up for better success in the future. And this doesn't even start to add, a whole new level of Islamophobia that's really taken off since, the 90s, I would say. And it dramatically increased after 9/11. These are just more and more stressors that that people who identify as Muslim have to deal with, regardless of where they're coming from in the world. And another, study where I found, I just want to quote, with the recent rise of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim sentiment, Muslim American communities have experienced ongoing stressors that have detrimental effects on their mental health. The challenge is further aggravated by multiple barriers to seeking help, including mental health stigma, lack of culturally religiously sensitive mental health services, and fear of discrimination by health providers. So again, I want to kind of stress here that the burden needs to be pushed onto the people of influence, whether you start from schools, whether you're at the doctor's office, whether you're seeing a therapist, and any other people of influence who are who are considered people that we look up to, or providing services, frontline workers, to really educate themselves and really work to make things, to remove some of those stresses for people. Other things, when you start adding Islamophobia on top of this constant, level of microaggressions, things like, having that expectation that one person or one child or one adult that you meet who happens to be Muslim then is suddenly representative of the, entire community or the entire religion, or, assumption that somebody like me would suddenly be able to explain the entire geopolitics of the entire, Muslim world and what's going on in the Middle East. So these kind of little things that are put on and may be asked in a, in a way where somebody is trying to figure out or genuinely trying to learn, but it becomes very wearing on a person, especially, younger adults, your teens who are in high school or university and are just trying to, do their thing and figure out life. And then they have all these expectations piled on them by society or by community. And there was, statements made by politicians and media just continue to reinforce that. Back in the 90s, it was "you're with us or against us." Muslims are jealous of our freedom, and that's why we have to go to war in Iraq or in Afghanistan, and we have to save the subjugated women. Add to that, more recently in Canada, you've got your bans on hijab and niqab and Bill 21. And there's, those microaggressions start to escalate. They become verbal attacks, physical attacks, as we saw just a couple of weeks ago here in Guelph. And then you have the extremes where it goes to the shooting in Quebec City in the mosque, and arson in a Peterborough mosque was burnt down. And so those things are, all those little things that tend to build up over time, that when a person finally makes it to to a mental health expert, or finally gets to the point where they're, I need help to deal with this. And then there's other cultural or, barriers that are presumed as you try to go forward. Assumptions that, you may or may not know English, or judgment about taking on, more traditional gendered family role, that all men are prone to domestic violence if they're Muslim, all women are subjugated and probably don't have an education or are very, unknowing or innocent of the world. And then just to even realize that, my experience being first generation here, growing up in a middle income family, is going to be very, very, very different than somebody who came as a refugee, or very different than my children who were born and raised here and don't know any other culture. For me, a lot of stress growing up was trying to balance my Canadian culture with my parents' culture, when my parents had, this fear, as many immigrants do, that their cultures and languages are being lost, and they're questioning, did I do the right thing by moving, to a different country? So those are all very different than somebody that's coming as a refugee from a war-torn region, or something to that effect. And so I think it's really important to understand that everybody's journey is different, that we cannot group everybody as one racialized group and say, okay, this is the fix for everyone. There's a lot of different things that are going to have to happen to get get our systems in a better place to really assist those who are coming from different racialized communities. So I don't want to drag on too long, and I want to give some time to Queen and have some question and answers as well. So just to summarize, I think the responsibility for empathy, for acknowledgement, for creating space has to go to those who are on the front lines, who are in our social services, in our medical services, because they are the people that and our educators, because if we don't, somehow mitigate these stressors, then the mental health crisis is going to just keep going. And I haven't even added like the regular stressors of socioeconomic background, financial instability, single parent families, addictions, all of that stuff, is just an added layer to having to deal with, these little micro, I keep calling them little, but if you start, really counting them, they become extremely macro aggressions. And lots of stuff to do. And I think we all have to be willing to open ourselves up to educating and learning. A couple of resources that are available across Canada. There's two really good organizations, the Islamic Social Services Association, which is based out of Winnipeg, and the National Council of Canadian Muslims, based out of Toronto and Ottawa, have a lot of resources for learning. They have cultural training, sensitivity training, all sorts of things that are available to help our services and people in those positions. And then lots of studies done by Berkeley Institute, California, Runnymede Trust out of the UK. And just even a quick Google search will bring up a lot of books on Islamophobia and psychiatry and all sorts of things that are there, some of the stuff that I quoted as well today. So I think that's my 15 minutes and my bit. So I'm going to hand it over to
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. I just wanted, before I go to Queen and introduce her to take over, just again, on behalf of everyone here, just thank you very much for sharing. Not only do the participants that are here live right now appreciate it, and myself, of course, but if anyone sees this video later or shares it later, I'm sure they'll be touched with your advice, your lived experience stories. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share just a couple things I wrote down as I was listening to you. The microaggressions, you say that they're subtle, but they stack up. They stack up and they become the macro, as you said. And the other thing that I really grabbed from you as well is that they cause a lot of, you said, huge mental fatigue. And it was interesting, and I hope you don't mind me, I like to always kind of watch people, listen, and kind of clue in on some things. And a few times in your story to us, you sighed, because I think you even it's true, even you telling your story is a sense of fatigue of even having to explain those microaggressions of, naming your kids or what lunch or what kind of haircut, or like you're sighing even telling the story because that fatigue is real with your lived experience. And so I commend you so much for being so authentic and open today and sharing that. I'm sure a lot of us are learning a lot, as I have with just your 15 minutes. So thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. Before I go to Queen, I did a mistake, everybody, and I need to at least nobody corrected me, and I figured it out myself. But I really should have started today with territorial acknowledgement. And as soon as Sarah started talking, I was like, oh, I need to do the territorial acknowledgement. So before I go to Queen, I would like to do that now, as I should have done at the beginning. And so my apologies. As we are gathered, we are reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land in which we both live and work. And today we acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting today. Thank you very much for allowing me to get that in there. It's very important for truth and reconciliation as we continue to talk on this theme. If I could have Queen, can you turn on your camera for me just to make sure you're there? Awesome. Thank you, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say as well, Queen. I will mute and stop my video. It's over to you for the next little bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Cam, for such a beautiful introduction. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your stories with us. Today, first off, I'd like to acknowledge the lands of the Turtle Island that we stand on. Our community of color and our Black community is so grateful for our Indigenous people and for the land that you have opened up to us as we escaped through the Underground Railroad. I am here to talk to you a bit about the Black community and a bit of our struggle within the mental health area. And I'd like to acknowledge the same thing Sarah does, that my experiences are just one of many, and my stories are just one of many. I can acknowledge the fact of I do have much privilege coming from a home that is primarily a white family. So the representation I see at home is very different than what I see looking back at me in the mirror as an adopted Black woman. Just a little bit about me. I'm executive director for the Guelph Black Heritage Society, as well as the leader from the Black Lives Matter protest and solidarity here in Guelph on June 6th. I've been working heavily in Black activism for a long time, and it was just so apparent that it was needed. And it was a historical moment for Guelph and actually for Ontario, and I'm just so honored to continue this conversation. Mental health within the Black community impacts how individuals respond to stress, conflict, relationships. In fact, these issues can present as early as 4 years old. This is really disheartening, as Sarah sighed off in the same conversations that we have to have in our own home. How do we protect our kids? How do we protect our partners? How do we protect our families? How do we protect ourselves when we know when we walk out that door from our front door in our homes, we might not walk back inside? These mental health issues stem into cultural, social, and many personal factors that affects one's ability to identify mental health issues. We spoke on the fact that within our own communities, this is demonized as something and so misrepresented. So to even get to that door to get help is already difficult. We see within our community a 60% increase in mental health and psychosis than any other community. This means that we're at higher risk to adversity in care. And it also means that we're at higher risk to restraints under mental health and addiction systems. We've seen this firsthand this year in 2020 with the movement of Black Lives Matter and the loss of George Floyd. I myself want to acknowledge a very close friend of mine, Regis Korczynski-Paquette, that we lost this year to police brutality and violence in the mental health system. Amongst those names, we could go on: Ahmed Aubrey, Jason Collins, Alicia Hudson, Andre Campbell. And this is a constant for us, whether this hits home here in Guelph, here in Canada, or spreads throughout worldwide. We see every day the killings of our people happening. I get emotional because it happens so often that we have no time to grieve in between the next loss. We have no space to heal. And this is what leads to all the mental health destruction that has been happening within our community that is built into our generational DNA. I want to talk a bit about some of these structures that affect us. One is biology, family genes, and the neurological problems. So when I talk about mental health being bred into the DNA, I'm so serious about that. Every time we lose a member of our community, it hurts us. And then that is translated into our children and translated into our community, and then continues to affect us. Not to mention the social determinants that are at risk: low income, unemployment rates, housing, criminalization. And then something that Sara spoke briefly on is the barriers that our immigrants face. There is a 200 to 300% increase now on language barriers within Canada. A place that calls us diverse is slacking a little bit in that area. The access to mental health support is so low for our communities. What's disheartening is the fact that once we even get to that door, we're still underrepresented. What we see when we get to those doors are white males and white females. Representation is so key to communities, and this is why it's worked with our white communities, because we see others who look like us. For us, we're not seeing that, and that stems all the way from our healthcare system into our educational system and even into our own community systems that be. What we understand is that once we get there, there might not be that affordable option for us, let alone the fact that we already make 10 to 15% less than our white counterparts at any specific job that matches the exact same job. Let alone if you're a Black woman, you're probably making about 5% less than that as well. So already the affordability and the cost of the mental health is at risk. There's judgment from our own community on what mental health is. So to get to that door, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. When we get to that door, and from personal experience, it can be really, really tough. It can be tough to be heard. It can be tough to be seen. It can be tough for that person sitting across from you to even understand what you're going through. There's a whole nother level of mental health that affects our communities due to life circumstances such as poverty, abuse, neglect, and then all the traumatic events that we're experiencing and seeing happening on live TV. This constant trauma eats away at our souls and our spirits and has caused a lot of struggle within the addiction systems. There's really no option for us. The option is currently no affordability, over-medicated, under-resourced, and then we're relying on structures that have been essentially created by colonial structures that need to be disassembled and recreated so it fits and it can be used for every single body. That's inclusive of me. That's inclusive of the Muslim community. That's inclusive of the LGBTQ2+ community. There has to be a space where we find intersectionality cross and have that support. We need representation. We need the social worker or the mental health worker advocating for us and sitting across from us and trying to understand what we go through. The pain and suffering has led to not only mental health problems, but criminalization. We see this happen so often to our Black men and our Black women. I don't want to forget our Indigenous community. I would like to acknowledge the fact that our Indigenous community is experiencing mental health problems at the exact, if not higher rates than our Black community currently in Canada. As a Black woman and non-Indigenous, I cannot speak to their experiences, but I can relate. We see that the crime and the suffering has led to just unproportionalized charges for our communities. And then once we're in the prison systems, there's actually not much support. There are systems like CAMH that do work with prison systems to help with mental health. But again, it's usually that white male who looks pretty close to the person that probably arrested you, sitting across from you and trying to understand your experiences, what you've been through, and it just doesn't work. There are programs set up such as Native Sisters and Native Brothers within our prison system to help with mental health, but there's little programs set up at all for our Black community. There are a few at Toronto South, which has recently been renamed as Guantanamo Bay South because of the destruction that has been happening, the increase of suicides, and the increase of mental health problems within the actual prison system with a low amount of COs and support actually happening. What we see at places like Maplehurst and Vanier, just outside of our city, is that same struggle. There's no support, there's no programs, there's no ways for these improvements to be made onto our community. Instead, that Person is left alone, left struggling, left in isolation, and then sent out back into the community with no resources or no support. I do want to touch a bit on something a psychologist said from Toronto who works with Caribbean clients. Her name is Natasha Brown, and she says, "We are also adding additional layers with issues of racism, sexism, classism, and the heightened stigma within the community itself. It is seen as almost an all or nothing phenomenon. Either you're perfectly normal or you're crazy." And this quote hit real home for me because it took me so long to get the mental health support I needed. A little background on myself is I was living in Toronto this time last year, or a few years ago rather. And what brought me back to Guelph is that I was really suffering. Not only was I witnessing the mental health destruction that was happening in Regent Park and in our communities that are experiencing gentrification. So they're being ripped out of their homes, put into prisons or homeless situations, and then left with nothing. In addition, I witnessed one of my best friends be shot in front of me outside a very local nightclub there in Toronto on College Avenue, an area that's known as Little Italy, so hits home for Guelph as well. This experience was traumatic. I got a call from my mother the next day because the media put in that everyone involved, inclusive of my name, were part of gang violence. So often the media is a part to portraying the racism and destruction that is happening to our community, and they're a part of this violence. And let's say it how it is, it's violence. And my mom called, I was already heartbroken. My best friend is in a coma. I'm sitting in a hospital. I'm trying to understand what happened. And what happened was that a white male came up to my friend and called him the N-word. He, being a strong Black male, didn't want to back down, tried to teach him otherwise, and it led to a situation that almost lost his life. For months, we sat in and out of the hospital in the chapels, praying for his life as he sat in a coma. And this was his third experience being shot, third in Toronto. From racism to discrimination to growing up in Jane and Finch. These places at home for all of us. So when we talk about mental health support, and when we talk about needing, the help from our allies, we need it so bad because we're tired, we're exhausted, we're sick of this fight, we're sick of the misrepresentation. In addition, as a Black woman, this modern day belief in symbolic nature of the strong Black woman and the angry Black woman has translated into the stereotype since the 1950s. Little Black girls and little Black boys are being told that they have to show face and be strong in the face of adversity, and that's not fair. It's not fair that we have to have the conversations with our children on what their names are. It's not fair that we have to have conversations with our children that they could be at risk the minute they leave the home, or we could be at risk. It's unfair that my friend's 4-year-old daughter came up to me and asked me, "Queen, am I going to be shot by a police officer?" Those moments hurt our whole community. Constant, the attacks on Guelph Black Heritage Society's Heritage Hall, we've experienced vandalism. During protest weeks, I experienced threats. We saw people posing as Guelph Police Service. I experienced people telling me that they were going to find out where I live and come for me. We experienced white supremacists in the protest that we had to remove. We experienced watching our fellow brothers and sisters at the Muslim Society go through vandalism, go through verbal attacks. And we've been working together so diligently to keep ourselves supported during these times because it is a constant. And it happens in Guelph, and it happens outside of Guelph and in Canada, and it happens abroad, not only to the States, but worldwide. We have seen the story of, as we call her, Central Park Karen, who called the cops on a Black man running through the park. This woman was from the University of Waterloo. So when those moments happen and these things happen, whether or not we're seeing it happen in our community, whether or not we're seeing it as blatant attacks, whether or not we're seeing it in the media, each time that chips away at our heart more and more. Each way that chips away at our spirit and our mental health. We are constantly being attacked, which means that we have to constantly be holding our armor. And we use our skin as our armor and we hold it strong, but it's about time that we also work together to do the hard work. So there are resources I'd like to connect you to. The Black Health Alliance is an amazing organization. They just worked with the government and committed $19 million to Black Canadians and mental health. We also have the Black Mental Health Canada Association. They're great for articles and blogs and support for my fellow community members. And then from you, I ask for you to do the hard work in allyship. Self-designation versus action. This is the time we have to say, hey, is our workplace doing the right thing? Are we doing the right things? And then standing up for those system inequities that are facing us. I hope that you all can stay accountable to the representation that you see in your own workplaces and surrounding areas. And I know that Guelph has really been doing the hard work. We can be the city that everybody else wants to be. So I thank you for my time and your time today.
Queen, thank you very, very much. Don't turn off your camera. I want to be able to see you. Again, just as I said with Sarah, I've been writing some things down here. Earlier on in your talk, you mentioned that between each issue that continues to occur, you hardly have the ability to even have that time to grieve or that time to get help, because it happens and it happens and then it happens. And so that's something that really stuck out with me. You talked a lot about its constant trauma, the affordability issue that you talked about with seeking help. And then I just want to acknowledge both you and Sarah were very good at this. You were really good at showing how much you care for others. Like, this is your story and you recognize that it's your story, but you equally recognize others are going to have a different story than you. And I appreciate that from both of you. And then the biggest thing I wrote down here was, I think it's probably the greatest quote of, if I was writing an article, I'd say this. These moments hurt our whole community. And I think as you ended when you said we need to keep each other accountable in our own workspaces, our own community, our own families, our own institutions, faith communities, work. It doesn't matter where. We all have to maintain that accountability. Thank you so very much. You have been just a rock star in our community with bringing these issues to light, to myself and to many, many others. And we just wish you all the best. Please stick on the line right now. I want to introduce everybody. Ben is from the Family Counseling and Support Services. Sarah, maybe I could ask you just to put your camera on. Queen, you keep your camera on too. And Ben is going to just look at the chat room where there is some questions that we can have the next 10 minutes, and I'll let I'll mute and turn off my camera. I'll let Ben go through those questions and moderate it between Queen and Sarah, and then come back for some final remarks. Ben, over to you, and thank you for doing this for us.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Mayor Guthrie. I'm just taking a look now at any questions we have. So far, no questions, but if you have any, please do feel free to type them in the chat box or the question box. We do have a number of comments, of course, that are coming in the chat and the questions, and they're very lovely comments. So while we're waiting for some questions, I might just share some of those comments. Somebody says, thank you, Queen. You did so well. My heart is hurting. Thank you both for sharing your stories. We've got some great resources people are posting as well in the chat, so you can check those out if you're looking for places for more information and support. If there are any questions, of course, this is a great chance to ask, and I know Queen and Sarah are happy to take any questions you may have.
I'd like to comment on my heart is hurting. I think that, that really hits home, and it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to, grieve and feel that emotion, because we do want to challenge you to feel these different emotions, the struggle, the pain, the anger, but also the passion and the power that has been coming out of this movement during this time. So thank you for that.
We do have a question now, and I think this is a great question. It's not directed to anybody particular, but either of you or both of you might have something to say. And the question is, what role do you see the Guelph Police Services playing as we move forward?
So for the Guelph Police Service, we've been in conversation and working since June on the things that we can do best. And I think at this point, what's really key is not only educating their service team, which I will be doing from January to April, as well as speaking with the senior leadership team in October. And Sarah, you can speak to this too, but also, what's going to be important is the reallocation of money and funds. And that doesn't necessarily be a decision from our mayor. It's not a decision from our Guelph Police Service. This is a provincial decision that needs to be made and mandated so that we can have space for programs like Impact that we already have in place, which has about 6 mental health workers that go along police calls. The problem is we have about 20 to 25 mental health calls a day just in Guelph alone, and we just don't have those resources. So I would like to see some reallocation of money and funds to hire on some more mental health support workers so that these calls can be made by those workers, and the police are secondary. They're the protection for the mental health worker because we don't know what we're going into, but someone there who can really work on decreasing that situation so we don't end up with the situations we're seeing.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that. Queen was right on when we talk about education. And it's a lot of time. I think what happens is we need the police force and our mental health workers and everyone to be more proactive rather than waiting for a racialized community to be taking steps to do things, whether it's reporting or whether it's asking for the help. The burden comes back on us who are being victimized, where we hope that we can flip that and get more proactive actions from, and it's police services or any services at all. So it's a hard thing to be constantly having to be on top of that, being the victim and then having to be the one providing the information or the resources to any other group who's supposed to have that as their mandate. So education, I think, is the biggest thing right now, and I know Queen has been working quite hard these past few months with the Guelph Police Services and getting things moving in that direction.
Awesome. Lots more questions rolling in. I'm going to try to summarize ones that seem to go together as well, just so we can get some of these great questions. There's a question around what kind of language might we use when we're speaking to our youth about racism? And the second question that goes with that is, where might we direct youth who are persons of color that want to share their stories?
Sarah, do you want to speak to this first? I know you're doing so much work with youth.
Yeah, in terms of language, I think the language just has to be validating that you belong. This is your space. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to push it or like work your way in. It is your space because you are one of us. Terms like even inclusivity or, acceptance, tolerance, it still makes me as a person feel like you are begrudging me the space. You're okay, I'll make space for you. I don't necessarily enjoy it, but here we'll let you in. So I think changing that tone and that language to validate, accept, and say that, no, this is your space. How can we help you step up to it, rather than okay, we'll let you into the circle, or we'll let you in for recess almost, like it's that kind of language or that kind of tone, I think really needs to change. And then educating and informing yourself rather than waiting to be informed by by a racialized group or by a minority. It just makes it, a little bit easier for me personally to assert myself, or for my children to say, oh yeah, this is, what I need, or what I would like to see.
And I totally agree with that. And I think also when it comes to terms is like, for so long, we've worked on pronouns for LGBTQ2+, and I think we can take some, learning curve from that and ask our fellow people of color, our Black and Indigenous, how they do want to be called. I prefer Black woman, but some people might prefer African Canadian or Caribbean Canadian, or, what defines them. I think that's an important conversation. As for resources, right now, the Guelph Black Heritage Society just launched our educational campaign, which is working on top 100 resources, inclusive of books and movies and, changing some of the things that are happening inside of our school boards. There's great writers and great authors out there who have created some amazing things, like Desmond Cole, The Skin We're In, to, Netflix documentaries like There's Something in the Water by Dr. Ingrid. There's really quite a few out there. So I would challenge you to head over to the Guelph Black Heritage website, and that will give you a lot of tools and books and resources to start on. I think I just purchased like 30 books for myself from the bookshelf, who is an amazing partner to us, and have been doing really hard work to promote these works that have been done. So yeah, I would definitely encourage checking that out.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your answers. And I think we probably just have time for one more question. And then Mayor Guthrie would like a few minutes just to wrap up and thank everybody. So our last question, there's so many good questions, so it's hard to pick, but I'm just going to pick the next one that came in. And I think it's appropriate given our topic today. And it is, how can mental health service providers reach out to racialized communities in a way that is most helpful and respectful?
I think the first thing is I think we get a lot of emails to be like, are you okay? I can guarantee we're not. I can guarantee across the board we're not okay. No matter who you ask, we're all grieving. So I'd say, reaching out to us and just, providing a space to be heard and seen is really key. Acknowledging that your space needs more workers of color and the BIPOC community, because we don't necessarily always want to talk to our white counterpart because we're looking for a different experience. But there are a lot of ways that we can start working together by just, these things that are happening right now, these conversations, these educational moments with different community members like myself and Sarah. Sarah, you want to speak on to that?
So forums like this is a really great start. Some of the stuff that, there's so many different layers. When I was even trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about today, that there's a lot of stigmas within our group. And when you come into a place like the Muslim Society of Guelph, we represent about 40 different ethnicities. So it's really hard to try to get together. So we are also looking for that help to start building those resources and those structures. So we could really use help from all these organizations and say, how do you structure some of this stuff? How do you pull together the resources? Because there's a lot of different communities that we're dealing with, and a lot of stigmas that we're working to overcome and to encourage people to get the mental health supports that they need. So I think right now it's working for South Asian communities. I would say it's got to work both ways. We also need help to really build those structures. And the good news is that we have a lot of young people graduating from programs in psychology, psychiatry, social work, social services. So, you know, we're starting to build that group and those resources that can communicate with the existing structures.
Awesome. Again, thank you both very much for your time and your willingness to answer some of these questions. There's certainly a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get to them all. But thank you to everybody for asking your questions as well. I'm sure the engagement speaks volumes. And I'm personally hopeful that this is just the start of many, many conversations in our community. Mayor Guthrie, I'll turn it back to you for your closing remarks.
Well, thanks so much, Ben, Sara, and Queen. Thank you again. Even in just your answers there, you know, I think one of the things that you said, Queen, is that we need to think about recreating all of these institutions. How can we think about, how can we dream about actually not having everything so siloed and it's, oh, well, that's your problem. Well, no, that's your problem, or that's that level of government. That level of government. How can we recreate and dream to really figure that all out? Also, Sara, you hit me pretty hard right between the eyes when you when you said the word begrudgingly in your answer about like, oh, we'll let you into this space. You know, that's how it feels, and somehow it's like, okay, we'll give you some kind of permission to join us, that type of thing. And yeah, that's a takeaway for me. So thank you for saying that out loud. We all need to hear that. And lastly, I just want to say that while you were both speaking, the chief of police let me know that he adores the both of you, and the relationship that you have had in the conversations with him over these past several months has made a big impact with him as well. And being on the police board myself, I echo that as well. So thank you very much for your work with our local police. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. I said at the outset that this happens annually, and to be honest with you, we should do one of these like once a month. Yeah, I think our whole community would be better for it, to be honest with you. These are great conversations to be having. I said at the beginning they might be difficult, but we need to hear it, and we're going to be a better community for it. So thank you so much. This is the way that we can break down barriers and we can address stigma on all of these types of issues. And so at the beginning, as I mentioned, this was recorded, so I can't wait for it to be available. And I would really encourage, I think, everyone to, just as much as we're supposed to be accountable in our own workspaces and homes and institutions and faith communities or whatever, maybe one of the things that we could do is just when we finally get the link to this video, we could be purposeful in sending it out to our families and our friends and our coworkers and our institutions and our faith communities and where we work and whatnot. I think even that, just spreading this message today is going to be just another tool to help guide our community as we move forward in addressing these issues. Thank you again to all the attendees, as I said, and to all the people behind the scenes that made this work. I'm the mayor. I get to be the one that hosts, and here I am. I can tell you this is all I do. There is so much work behind the scenes. Many people deserve our praise and thanks for what they do. So thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And I know I'm getting ready for a couple turkey dinners myself, and I really appreciate it. So thank you again, and take care. Bye-bye.